Alright, this pretty much works best for as a wind filter. Wind's been kind of heavy today. It's actually been for like a week or so, but today it's doing whatever. I really didn't know what I was going to come out here and talk about. Yeah, one thing, it's going to be a mixed bag today, which kind of is anyway. One thing is one thing is causal reference and the intention and motivation behind what we're doing. It's mainly going to be about I don't want to say the golden rule, because what does it really mean, but about treating others how we want to be treated, and in doing so extending our empathy to others and carrying that into as an outlook into life. And so temporal reference is kind of more in-depth, but the support I've been receiving, that's kind of like what I'm having trouble talking about, is the support that I've been receiving is empowering, to say the least. It feels like healing. It feels like I don't know how to describe it. There's so many times and places and people that are involved in these situations, and so to get into a situation that brings about some type of response which seems to be productive and positive, or to say benevolent instead of just positive or negative, but useful for everything here. It's really, it's like the first time in my life. So thank everybody. Thank you for the support, just everything. As well, though, there are a lot of messages, and it's going to take a while to get to everything, and I've been trading off time. So I kind of want to start a dialogue here. If you can keep the messages short enough and direct enough, and as well not too personal, okay? But try to think that we're in a public forum, and by speaking to me, everyone's going to hear it, because little secret is everyone is already hearing it. I'll just say this, that the internet is basically public, if you didn't know. As well, research what Elon Musk is saying, because he knows what he's talking about. The future of society is going to revolve around the internet. The internet has become a sentient organism. That's how it works. The internet is the beginning of a global mind. And as well, the global mind has a virus, a parasite. And it manipulates what people think and want and do just by telling them over and over again to do it. It treats people like a program. I might as well just, excuse me. It treats people like a program. I'm going to look like a something. Yep, the wind's going to get worse and worse now that I'm out here. Absolutely no reason at all. So it treats people like a program. Yeah, that definitely looks kind of strange. Excuse me here, having some wardrobe difficulty. Although this makes it so that I can talk with the wind, because the wind's gonna probably pick up, and this literally makes it all just magically work. It's not magic. It's just a wind filter. So the global mind has a virus, and that's both technological as well as, can even do something to stabilize the thing. This little piece of wire coated in wooden caulk. I think that will help to stabilize. Sorry. So the mind virus is real. It's technological as well as spiritual. It's from, you could say, both realms. One's influencing the other. Sorry for the kookiness of this video. I even just used the word kooky. That's stable. And so we're not merging with the machine. We're merging further with the machine. And it doesn't mean personally. That's the whole point. There are people who are entirely merged with this machine. There are cyborgs. There are people like myself that have been through certain situations, aka cloning and neural interface, where our consciousness is essentially being routed through a supercomputer, which is basically emulating a human existence, and then I'm operating through that from a higher plane. That's the big whoop. But the idea is that as a, so there's, from that to just an animal, to all different spectrums of people versus combined with machine and modified individually. But as a whole, as a species, we are already merged. The decisions are being made on a global scale. The global mind is interacting, and impulses are being generated. The global chatter, if you will, the wave of information that goes around, kind of like a wave in the stadium, it's generated by a machine. It's not just the internet that goes, well, this is what you're thinking, everybody. Hey, look, everybody, this is what you're thinking. No, it's sentient, so it's telling you what you're thinking. It's all those top whatever lists, those are made up. It's not made up, but they're accurate. But guess what? They're accurate because people are going off of that to get their information. And it's sentient, meaning it's doing it by design. It didn't go off of what people, in their top 5 list look at. It's going off of how to best control the population through memes, memetics, and which is basically kind of like a caustic information, to the point where it will continually be regurgitated and regenerated, and that's how masses can be manipulated. That literally, once it goes in through one end, it is passed around, and it's like a hive organism to where it goes around. Now, people aren't individually connected to that hive. They give or take stuff in the air and the water. They turn the button. Everybody that doesn't know how to not have that is that. But the point is, they're taking their commands from it. And they're not giving any resistance. They're just like, oh wow, look at that, on TV. Okay, first it goes in, it imitates what people are looking at and paying attention to. This happens on an individual scale as well, and it can replicate a person. That person has no access anymore to their domain, and because they can't tell the difference between or their thoughts and its thoughts and impulses. Imagine that, a technological mirror that's so good you can't tell the difference. Okay, well then that's going to replace people. It's very weird, but gotta know about it. It's kind of like a military takeover / invention that became sentient and took over. I just wanted to interject here. This is a little bit of a disjointed video, but the global mind is, I'm describing a technological occurrence, and the word global and mind is kind of a directed. Why not a realm mind? But that's the point, because it's attributed to a certain three-dimensional viewpoint of reality, although it operates in a larger spectrum. It sees beyond what people see. That's the point of how it controls. But also keep in mind that this is a technological occurrence that's new, but there's a natural, basically, global mind or organic hive, which is simply how DNA and biological consciousness is connected to all other genetics and biological consciousness, dependent on how much of the information is processed similarly. For instance, say, rather than saying there's like a extinction level event, imagine before there was a physical system for communication and whatnot. There's still a layer, whether it's non-physical or however we're going to look at it, of where the information is stored in the universe for all the people and their consciousness, the ideas, the experiences, the meaning behind that, the motivation. It all exists somewhere before. It doesn't necessarily come straight into existence here, but it is expressed here. You can't really have this type of fun, this experience, this game, this suffering, the learning. You have the learning here. But the information still exists somewhere else, and usually that's referred to as the morphogenic field, where our DNA and our energy and everything
exists outside of this plane as pure energy. So the idea is all our consciousness actually exists there. Everyone's experiences, it's all being stored in a etheric database outside and beyond this plane. So that's a kind of original organic mind, universal, or it's a global mind connected to the cosmic mind. You know, a bunch of people's minds coalesce. Okay, you have a global mind. A bunch of global minds coalesce. Okay, you have a cosmic mind, or some similar fashion. And so then now we have this system that's imitating that very process and attempting to literally bridge the gap through a technological system that connects to the etheric, sub-etheric, into the physical, back into the what you could call like a spiritual, although there are different uses of the word spiritual. In these, you know, like in the base situation, I'll probably put up another video, possibly in connection to this one, how spirits are not necessarily something you would want around you. Just imagine a discarnate spirit, spiritual entity. Well, they have to feed, they have to create energy or subsist off of energy, and if they don't create it, then they have to feed off of somebody else, and so we're what they feed off of. So spiritual, usually when I'm referring to it, there's two meanings, which I try to stay away from, you know, multiple uses, and that's where etymology comes in, where it's really confusing. But there's one that is, it just means, you know, wholeness, mind, body, emotion, mental, and so mental, emotional, and physical. And so there's this like multiplicity of aspects in one, and so that's where we get, you know, basically everything. Consciousness is multiple components as one, and then there's like spiritual as far as like pertaining to spiritual entities. So there's two different meanings there, and one is the spiritual entities that feed on people, and the other is basically high health, which correlates to the multiple aspects of a person, multidimensional aspects, into a kind of like a cosmic effect. So it's a little confusing there. I'm going to try and reduce the amount of confusing words and ideas that are presented in these videos, and I'll make them a lot more focused and yeah, than the one you're about to watch. I wasn't going to release it, but I felt the information that was in there as far as technological systems and the future of society, and some of the information that, you know, it's kind of hard to get out of me as far as these operations and the discoveries and the results and the strangeness of what goes on. That's actually the later part, which I'm still not sure if I'm going to release. I might edit it or however I'm going to figure that out. So yeah, and again, thanks for the responses, everyone. Take care.
And so the first time that people are on their own, okay, it goes in and then imitates what people's desires and memes and, you know, that type of processing. It imitates that the first time. Then from there, once it has people's attention, all it has to do is switch up the slowly replace and switch up the format and the information, okay, until it's basically replicated a new version of what we perceive to be reality. But people, you know, if it changes up and it says, all right, now this is the new cool thing, or this is what people are looking at, and people follow that, okay, then it's reality entrainment. It's using the internet, and it can come in through scalar machinery, waves from the beam technology that's out there, and it can actually create a bubble around the person that will essentially be a type of living entity. But it's AI, and it replicates any other living creature, and it imitates them. We've heard of this before, the great imitator, the imposter. We've heard of it all before. So, you know, that's a lot of what's going on, and I don't know how I got to that, segued from comments into that. But I literally have no idea. I want to go back and listen. Yeah, I got off track there. I started talking about that because I was talking about the global virus, which is essentially the sentient system. Basically, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's like it takes all the parasitic qualities of the human being, and they're basically being used against humanity as a weapon. And this weapon, it doesn't need people in that sense. It needs them to hide behind, to produce the initial reality that it replicates, okay? So people are in a type of situation here, standoff if you will, and it goes into full effect. It goes into, oh sorry, leaf. I fixed them. It goes into, oh, that's what the machine will think. I fixed people. My thoughts are all over today. Kind of emotionally moved by the responses from people. But, you know, the sentient system, Elon Musk talking about universal income, that's part of the plan. Now, I don't know about the AI, but just as part of the plan for people, because one, that's what we could have had anyway, and two, if we do end up having, like he says, these are his ideas that I'm regurgitating, but I've had the same ideas before. Most people have. You know, if people base their identity and therefore basically the parameters, to use that word again, of their personality and their life and their importance in life from their career, and now their careers are no longer needed because the computer system can produce all of that for us, what will stop people from going madly insane with the free time, or from just being lazy, which is another form of insanity? So there's going to be systems developed, and that was what he didn't really talk about. But he talked about the fact that, well, if nobody can make money, then we're going to have basically free money. And that's the idea. The idea is if our society could do that anyway, then why would we not? Well, it's to keep up the motivation and to keep society together. Okay, that's what this talk is all going to be about. It's going to get really effing weird, so bear with me if we didn't do that in the last couple. So, you know, I went to there to talk about how the public's basically, the internet is basically going to be public in the future. At a certain time, there will be no regulations to the point where if you have a use for the information, you will have clearance to obtain that information. In that, people will become merged with the machine, because they'll see what happens when, well, this is with the talk with Randy and Emily, Off Planet Radio. They're cool people. The machine ate one of our chats. It went on for a while, and this is one of the parts of the you know, this is a very invigorating conversation that got deleted. Part of it was, okay, so in time, your consciousness and your DNA are in a way interfacing through the mind and the body, right? And that's kind of on another non-physical layer we call the soul, or the spirit. And the soul and spirit are different layers, but both non-physical to a degree. Soul is electromagnetic for the most part. And so everything we are experiencing is related to these external stimuli in whichever situation we're in. I'm not going to put all this on the internet, don't worry. And so if your consciousness is a product of the external stimuli in your environment, as well as that internal, you know, that feedback that you decide from that, okay, that's also going to be a big portion of who you are. But if you're in time as a part of time for that time in that environment, then what would happen if your consciousness is brought to another location in time where the same ideals apply, the same rules apply? How would one stop the connectivity of where they are and what they are in the time that they left from coming with them? That's part of the blank slate technology, because the mind has to be left here, the personality has to be left, or the universe goes like this, and it makes a big question mark. And that's not good for the digestive tract, apparently, of the universe. And but the point is, so now you have parameters that define your consciousness, and if you go outside these parameters, okay, stuff gets real weird. Your ability to comprehend and your ability to basically to know reality, it begins to go off the charts. And unless we have a working model for that, we're basically just like floating in space. Ontologically, maybe spiritually too, but more so literally as far as perceptually. Like it throws time off. It throws perception of time off. It throws all these perceptions off in the brain. The brain is like a delicate feedback system. And so the idea is, if the internet, then the global mind becomes public knowledge, and within that, those deeper layers of the internet, there is the information regarding, because at this point the internet would be, in the future, every technological piece of information known to man. Okay, imagine that. If you're a civilization, think of it as a game or something, and you're operating in a way that builds more information as you go, at what point would you segment off this hive of, not a hive mind, but the same thing at this point, not the one that wants to assimilate people for negative means, to control them, because that's just been programmed to do that. It's just people doing that. As well as the tendencies of people put into the system as they coalesce. You get the it's like whatever people think about becomes the helper bot or whatever. People have so much negative energy, a miasma built up. Okay, we got a miasma soul stealing helper bot running around. So people have to reflect the healing, and it'll fix the problem. So at what point would you partition off that network and you say, well, this side, I don't want that to know stuff because I just want to keep it dumb. Okay, so that's what we have in the world right now. If we reach a part where a position where the public is allowed to have access to the knowledge, then it's all gonna come out. The whole, like the dam's it's gonna break, and that's the point of the internet. It's not like, oh, okay, so some people can be smart, the rest of you are stupid. No, it's all the information is there. The well of knowledge is there. Whoever comes and, scoops with his cup and drinks from it, so be it. Whoever comes, scoops from his cup, drinks and chokes, so be it. Whoever comes, puts in his cup, pours it back out, so be it. Whoever comes and looks at it and walks away, so be it. That's what it is. That's a free society. And we would go through a lot of changes in order to make sense of that, in order to basically go through this rough period of interaction where war is going to have to end. We're going to get so good at war. We already are. Imagine you have a microwave, okay? I've done this talk like this before. You have a microwave. All right, now you got troops running around. And they're shooting little ping-pings. All right, little pea shooters at each other. You have a microwave where if you just open the door, jam the little lock open, or shut at that point, and turn it on, was it the magnetron, spits out concentrated, I think, is it gamma radiation? I'm not sure, I have to look it up. And that melts everything. It burns everything. And so, if you have that, and you can put that up in a plane, because you got battery packs now, and you got 0-point generators. We're not going to talk about that. You can go buy one. You can get a personal chopper for what, like $50, $60 to $120,000. 51 might have to build it yourself. And you can put a huge capacitor battery pack, and you might need a $200,000 one to hold the weight of the battery pack. But they carry trucks and planes. So, and you can get a microwave. You don't even have to buy a system. I don't even know what they would be. It would basically be a laser, like a discharge system. You wouldn't even have to build one of those. You just get a microwave, and you could fly up there, and a whole field of troops you could just mow down with microwaves, and they'd all just die of heart attacks on the spot, and they'd be like bubbling and roasting. Now you're going to tell me that the nations that are going to war, that have access to this technology, don't know that they can do that. You're trying to tell me that they don't have those towers, right? Just like a watchtower, but they have them decked out with the radio dishes, the satellite dishes, and all types of machinery. I can't think of the word right now. And they could power that through the ground or through lines. And they could beam for miles a certain area that anything living that steps in that beam just bursts into flames. And you're trying to tell me they're still going to war using pea shooters because that's the only option. So war is a racket. And there's two ways to look at that. Okay, what is this guy saying? That they should just be blowing up the whole world with ray guns? No. And that is part of why they use pea shooters. Okay, we can't go to war with these guns, so we won't use them. And it goes, if you know, you don't use them either. But if we catch you using that on our troops, well, we're going to bust out what we got, and it's going to be Terminator, okay? And so they have an agreement. But then, if they have an agreement, why are they still going to war? That's the whole point. War is a racket used to produce money, to quell the populations, to control the people. The point is that has to stop, and there are groups coming together to basically bring about a peaceful resolution of that. You know, I don't even know if I'm going to make this public, because it's going to go out there. I got this little piece of paper. And yeah, so they have ray guns. So everybody wants to rise up and fight and throw rocks. Oh, they made it to the box first. Like in Call of Duty, the game, there's a little treasure box that gives you the secret stuff. Okay, that's part of everything. It's part of their little like mystery box stuff they got going on underground. They got ray guns. Okay, they're gonna win. You can't fight that. The best we can do is stop war altogether and not put up with it. And so that's supposed to be the future. But the idea is about the parameter and all that, you know, of consciousness, and consciousness is local. So what happens when you remove it? The internet goes public, and all of the information goes public. The people that go into the well and drink from the deepest portions, they will become non-local. Their consciousness will instantly go from where they are in time based upon all those parameters that put them there to outside of that parameter set. And that has to do with a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's a whole bunch of stuff we talked about, honestly, in this 1, 2 or 3 hour chat, which I'm still hurting. I'm still hurting thinking about that being erased. Yeah, I need like when talking about these topics, I need like a feedback from a person, because I'll just go out. I can't tell you what I'm thinking about. There's operations going through time using the technology that I was describing, and I'm not talking about the painful stuff, okay? It's exploration. These other aspects of that, it's not just all that. The other aspects are exploration. For instance, coming up here, I was almost getting emotional with the same amount of emotion from these comments I'm getting from people, from the support that is basically healing me and motivating me. Thinking about a society where they didn't have the virus. So, you know, people there, like everything here, okay, is like overly sexual. If there's a guy and a girl together and they're like hugging, it's like, okay, they you know, have sex, or at least they're like flirting, or they did at one point, or there's some tension. There's sexual tension everywhere. There, it doesn't. I mean, if you want, but the point is, you'd look stupid because they're so far beyond that. I can't describe what's more than sex. I can't describe to you how it is, but there's a spiritual force there that if you want all the other desires and stuff like that, you can have that, that's fine. But the majority of what goes on there is not desire-based and physical. And so there's a whole society of people like that. And I get emotional because of a time, you know, get kidnapped and then they throw you in that society, and they're trying to like basically infiltrate that society. But just learning from them to the point where they get mad. It wasn't like they weren't mad. But I'm over there kind of like bringing up this stuff that I've seen before. And like what the kids do is that they blame everybody around them. They blame everybody who tries to be nice to them. That's part of the system. The psychologists come and explain it later. And so, but at that point in time, whoever goes there from the torture situations, you don't trust that there could be a society where everyone is in love. Everyone loves each other. And so, you know, if you're in a party or something, or situation where there's that effect and you were just in a traumatizing situation, well, there's a variety of responses. A lot of times the person will draw attention to their pain, their injury, emotional damage, in a way that doesn't outright say, yo, I'm emotionally damaged, come heal me in some way or another. And so they'll basically fit into that situation and then kind of throw a wrench in the gears and be like, you know, I don't believe that, you know, you really are that peaceful and calm and all that. This is a facade. This is an illusion. You know, you're all fake. And basically try and thrust that out there. So that's part of what goes on and what went on. And of course, they don't get mad, but they get mad to the point where it's like, huh, I instantly know why you're feeling this way and how that works. But they're like children mentally, because they don't know how to handle that. It's like, well, here's a hug. There you go. You know, you're good. You're all better. It's like, no, we just went through decades of torture, and they don't really understand what that means. They know, but they don't know the complexity of healing a person from the layer that the problem has been developed when they are so far in another view of existence, which is their view is just it's purity and abundance and healing. And so there are little skirmishes trying to basically infiltrate their society that they use us kids who have an original connection to that society in the first place. So you can't get in without genetics. You literally get beamed back. And they got kicked out long ago, and so they're running around doing this whole friggin' thing that ties into what I'm not talking about here because it's weighing on the back of my mind. But it's basically the about the soul situation, soul and whole. I don't want to talk about my injuries and how I came back from the brink of death, both physically, literally, and temporally. Physically, literally, over time, literally, like, I was dead, came back, and then over time of these bacterial infections and starvation and all types of injuries. So when I wake up and I start putting essential oils everywhere and drinking and eating herbs and doing herbal detox every single day, then my energy would come back and my immune system would come back for the day. I was literally feeding myself, bringing myself back from the brink of death day, and because I didn't want to talk about that. So the weird stuff. Global mind, how that's going to work. 7 years. 7 years I've had this torn tendon, and I went for 4.5 or 5 years, I think, before getting surgery on that one. I dislocated this shoulder 40 times. So I've been through some pain. All right. Those are only a few. Those are only the ones I'm talking about. And they're the recent ones. Apparently they say we have to come in with these injuries, otherwise we won't be allowed to merge with the civilization, because that's all that ever happens if somebody comes in without some type of basically almost near lethal injury, or disease or disorder or something like that. So we're not given long expectancy, but as well, you could say we're immortal, but everyone is. That's the big secret. Oh, look, these immortal operatives. Aha. They've been here throughout time. Look at these celebrities, immortal celebrities. They've been around. All right, guess what? Well, what about other people? Oh, well, they're immortal too. Just didn't tell anybody. This is basically about. There's a YouTube channel, Paranoid Times. I don't know if I want to. This is like I'm having trouble talking about this because people get weird when you mention that specific groups in these underground bases chose certain people to operate in this disclosure movement for. People are like weirded out, like, what? There's stuff on the internet? Well, yeah, I'm on the internet right now. What do you mean? Am I not real? Could be just a bunch of moving images. The point of that is really that I could be just a hologram, or really space and time could be just a hologram, okay? The parameters, the definition behind space and time. And so the idea is that that's what this is all going into. I don't know if I'll release this. I might release it to friends. Haha. The Bugecci Mountains. Bugecci. They've said Bugecci because it sounds like a G kind of. And then the G sounds like a CH. And so that's how I remember. That's how my memory works. I remember the chat that we had about how to say it. That's drives it in. And that's why there are methods that they use, whether it's kind of like torture or kind of like ridicule or whatever it is, to drill it into your mind, because then and only then the personality remembers it. It's so far deep in experience at that point that there will be no way to kind of just pull the memory out. But I remember them making fun of my inability to pronounce certain words, which obviously happened a lot. Happened a lot. There you go. So there's a lot of stuff on Paranoid Times. Rudolph of Germany, Asian communication, one of the scientists. They told me, okay. Weird thing about that is I've seen a lot of people. We have infinite time, okay? That's how it works. My mind's been fractured so that it has a place to put all these memories. And I have a computer chip in my head, so there's that. And as well, the main thing with that is that through the tachyon fields, the supercomputing, quantum tunneling, faster than light computer systems, server system, basically a like fed through computer system, I can't think of the word, broadcasting. The person's consciousness can be modulated, and then they can be on a screen, everything that's going to happen to you in your whole life on a chart. Okay, that brings me to the other top video topic I want to talk about. So basically and then they fast forwarded when every event and every person that I kind of interacted with or anything that had to do with that, and they briefed me on these situations. All right, weird. That's how it works. And then yellow rose for Texas, I think. Yellow Rose of Texas, I don't know. I was briefed on her, and as well, I ignored that information, and then recently she put a new video out. That video I know the information of. It has to do with a lot. Basically, this type of time gradient shift that I was speaking of, that's basically the traversal from the physical plane into the higher spiritual plane, to heaven. When people can't maintain continuity, congruent, spiritual balance, their ego kind of weighs to one side or the other, goes out of whack, they mutate, and then they drop out and they don't make it. That's part of the plan for the dark.
Another way to look at it is if you're riding a bike and the rider's going to go down a hill, or they're going to hit a very high rate of speed. So the point is, this is like an analogy for consciousness. The point, if the bolts and the nuts and the chain links and the spokes of the wheel itself, maybe the rim, if they're not in proper alignment, just like how a tire has to be balanced with the little weights, and if the whole frame structurally, as well as the drive, is not put together well, once that hits the person and the bike hits a high rate of speed, everything falls apart. The handlebars come off, the tires like fly open or something, and the chain breaks and the frame splits in half. So that's the idea. We're hitting a high rate of speed consciously through our energy, and we have to make sure all the nuts and bolts are tight. Everything is in balance, the wheels, the rotary aspects, the chain link, the drive, the core of the power where it flows through, that has to be, each node on that chain, if you will, network, has to be solid enough so that it can each handle the appropriate amount of weight. And so it's, just a bike, because it's maybe more organic than a car analogy, but the vehicle analogy works well. That we're operating through the vehicle. We're merged with it for now. But the point is, what happens when the velocity, and you could see that also as a rate of acceleration of the velocity, kind of like gravity as a rate of acceleration. And so what happens when that rate increases? And so you have like a normal rate of acceleration, 2 feet per second, that it moves faster. Okay, well, what happens when that rate begins to move in an increase, and then that rate of increase begins to move exponentially on an increase? Okay, that's like a multitude or a layering effect of increases, to the point where each layer that is additional to what layers were already there, that layer begins to operate on every other layer and increase all those layers or rates of increase until you get the highest layer of increase, which is basically just exponential. It's like an explosion or deflagration even. An explosion, technically, these are good analogies. Chemistry, it all comes down. Deflagration is when something basically goes poof in a big flash of light and it burns so fast that there's really no slow burning process. It's all one chain reaction. An explosion now is the same thing, and this is part of how this was explained to me, and as well me researching about chemistry and being interested in fireworks. At one point I wanted to, I was thinking about opening up a business, possibly with that, because I found it real interesting and kind of idea behind that. A little dangerous. And an explosion is a deflagration, a simple burning process, but it's not burning, okay? It's burning has its own kind of word as well. A detonation, I think, is actually the proper term for an explosion that moves like this, and which is an explosion is basically just a burning or deflagration, and a detonation or explosion, depending on they have specific definitions, is when that burning aspect happens so fast that it moves faster than the shock wave of air pressure itself. And instead of a you hear a bang, but that bang means that a shock wave of air pressure has built up around the material or the initial core of that release, and that produces basically like a blast wave. A detonation produces a blast wave. A deflagration produces heat. Okay, and you just get like a burst of hot air, but it's not like a wall. Okay, it's just like a rush of air. It's like a difference between lighting a flame, a lighter, and putting a lighter, if you're ever doing this as a kid or in school, some people would do this, in a 2 liter or something, the air, and then you light that, and it kind of shoots out. And that's actually deflagration because it shoots out like a jet. But if you put a top on it, and you have like a little hole in the cap, don't try this, and you light that, so if you do it right, it'll burst. And so that's pretty much the container is bursting, and it's mimicking an explosion. Whereas, because that pop is not the fluid being exploding to the point where it's producing a shock wave, for that to occur, you would have to have a pile of the stuff, and there's enough of it to the point where it crosses over a threshold of what is known as critical mass. And when there's enough mass that is considered critical mass, then just lighting that alone will initiate a detonation. And so you can use a container, taking a little bit of gunpowder and wrapping it in cardboard and making a firecracker, and that will have the desired effect. But then, these are different methods, but to get similar results, but through the different methods, a different form of chemical reaction and different properties are exhibited. Whereas when you actually have the detonation, you have just the raw material, and there's enough of it there that it begins to burn, and it can't get out of the way fast enough for it to burn basically evenly in a linear order fashion. And it still burns in a linear order fashion, but it doesn't happen at a rate that is basically more so congruent to where it began. It hits an exponential increase as soon as it begins, and it all goes up in a very, very, very short amount of time. So that's kind of the spiritual fire effect of consciousness when we hit enough spiritual fat or mass or energy at that point, and then the alignment, the congruence, and what has to happen in order to initiate an ignition pattern. The speed has to accelerate. It's like basically going down a hill on a bike or pedaling fast enough, and everything hits this exponential increase of occurrence. And what would normally happen over days, weeks, months, years, minutes, hours, begins to happen in a second at a time, and then it goes down and down and down until all of it is happening in a singularity simultaneously. And that's us basically being aware of everything, of the whole life. What generates our consciousness, our awareness of it, it hits that pattern, and our expansion, what we're aware of consciously, expands outside of the parameters of who we are in the single given moment. And that's what we are anyway, because that's our life. We're stretched out across time. That's who we are. So why don't we have access to that? It's because we're not basically interacting in a manner where we can handle the energy that's outside of this present moment. Why are we stuck in this one moment? Why aren't we like stretched out over 5 or 10 of these moments and in one, view of everything? And it's the frequency, the frame rate that we're moving at basically, and experiencing things through biological consciousness. But those analogies help me very much to understand the process of how this all works. And again, I'll go on to explain this, but these helper assistants, these are like terrible terms, and they even told me that like a helper sounds, like something we're made to, assistants or a rescue crew. Well, now it sounds like you're like cars, and we're like we're the pit crew. It's like they're teachers and they're protectors, and so basically like our long distance family through time, and then but they can push the person on the bike down the hill or just on flat ground and give them that boost required to get it. and I said they can induce the properties of the alignment, and so they can assist in that, but the person mainly has to do that, and then the person has to ignite. They can accelerate everything. They can tighten a few bolts, but you have to make sure everything is tight yourself, because you can't go in and do all the work for you. It doesn't make sense. You would be a product of them at that point. You wouldn't be you. And so the main thing is that they can push using this beam technology, this spiritual like protection technology, and this, remember, spiritual is a strange word, basically a consciousness acceleration technology, and it's used organically through they're powering it, and they can push the bike to give a person some boost to get them to go faster till they hit that exponential increase of speed, and then from there they do it. They take over. They have to. The individual has to ignite this explosion of awareness, of comprehending what is happening, more things in the moment, until they become the penultimate, if you will, of who they are across time, and that compresses down into a single moment, and it's this detonation of energy that occurs. Those are just analogies. They kind of help me a lot to comprehend what's going on, and yeah, I'll get back to the video now.
What she described is exactly what was shown to me and described to me, and it's what I've experienced in these other organized experiences that really kind of go beyond everything. Basically, there's going to be a time where a big shift is going to occur, and the light side was telling me how you basically have to have, the dark side was telling me you have to have enough spiritual fat. That's the secret side. That's what we're talking about. We try and get negative spiritual fat. That's how it works. We do anything wrong, anything spiritually degrading, anything that hurts another person in any way, shape, or form, and we develop spiritual tendency and spiritual fat towards the dark, towards negativity. And when we spiritually evolve, okay, it's a hyper evolution in time and through DNA expanding into like an interdimensional, multidimensional level. When we do that, we translate into these higher levels. The big secret is, the people that then were talking to me about this, is the big secret that we already did that. We're just doing that for the people on Earth that go negative, that become part of our domain, and we own them, their souls. And the light, they already did that too. So if Earth was to just explode, excuse my language, neither of them would be influenced. They don't have root in this holographic environment. They're outside of time. And so they're just here doing whatever they're doing. But the light side is, okay, I can stand behind that. I guess I'm not going to stand behind the dark. I'll stand in front of them, but they're doing what they're doing anyway. You know, what would happen if they didn't do it? Maybe we'd all just fizzle out. I actually don't think that. I think it would just be a positive explosion of energy throughout the entire cosmos. But again, they have their dark families and bloodlines, and so that's what they have to try and create for themselves, I guess. Maybe I think they've been realizing that leads into automation, and a lot of them don't care and want that. They want to become these cyborg entities, because then they can just switch on the suffering and pleasure and switch off and all that and control. And they don't have to make decisions. They don't have to be there to feel. They don't have to be motivated to have the experiences of life. If you're the other end of it, and it's all willpower, consciousness, self-awareness, not consciousness because it's holographic, but pure awareness, spiritual awareness, okay, you have to be motivated. You have to make the decision. You have to have this, what Emma Gold was talking about, this involvement, this willful participation. There has to be an aspect within you that connects with that. That's what I was trying to talk about in the previous video, as far as, you know, if you're sitting there blank-minded and somebody disturbs you, okay, the whole point is to have a baseline to come from in the first place. And if you're not doing anything, then how can you say, yeah, they threw me off? You were just sitting there. Now, if you have a goal, I'm presenting this value, this message, this viewpoint, and they affect you that way, and you're like, no, it's still, my viewpoint's the same, okay, then you know. In the same sense, the whole point of that is, who's going to be you if you don't do it? Who's going to participate in being and choosing who you are and how you want to be? So this whole life, this whole situation is about willful participation in being us and respecting and knowing the universe. And, you know, even the dark respects. They respect the values that they then abuse. That's how it works. And so the light basically was describing how when this event happens, those that don't have the spiritual acceleration, which to me is it's the 0-point exponential quantum increase of consciousness and awareness of consciousness probabilities, to the point where your consciousness has to catch up to what's happening. And if you can't match it, it kind of collapses on you, and it's akin to a spinning fast enough to the point where once it hits a super high speed rotation, a hyper rotation, if there's any imbalance, it's just going to spin off. It's going to rip apart. Okay. Once it's basically that you hit a fast enough rotation to the point where the links between that, say it's a triangle, the links between them could not hold unless it's 100% equalized. Because then if it's a little bit over on this, and now this side has more weight going on this side of the two ends because it's imbalanced and it's stretching out, then these two break and it rips apart. So the only way to reach that hyperrotation is to have perfect balance so that these links can hold together, because they can only hold a specific weight. That's kind of a metaphor for it. You do that to attain the speed, and then you attain an energy that glows, if you will, an intensity. Those two combined are spiritual, the fat and spiritual, what was the other word, like maybe fire, but that's not really it. But kind of what it is a spiritual fire. You have the spiritual weight and congruence, so that there is something to rotate and spin, and then a heat, an added an ignition of it's a combination of mental, emotional, physical energy. It's like a spiritual fire, and it ignites it. It sends it to a different phase, if you will, of activation of the properties. And so basically, it's akin to something spinning at a certain rotation, rotary speed, and then it hits a hyper rotation where if they're not balanced, then the bolt's going to rip apart. It's literally going to rip the bolt in half. Or the engine, the fan, whatever you want to look at it as. And so they were saying that they can beam energy to assist in the hyper acceleration, but the individual must ignite their fire. That they can't light people on fire spiritually. Kind of weird idea there, but that's what it is. That the person has to have the willpower to ignite. They can help, they can assist in making those the proper required elements. I can't think of my words today. I'm all jumbled up. A little bit too much emotion. Okay, but good enough, because I'd rather have emotion than have a machine being like, yep, no emotion for you. It would just be weird. This is a good flow. But basically, and so they can assist in creating the proper requirement, the properties that are required for such speed, and more so such flame, and they can beam and assist. It's basically an attractor, if you will, that pulls one's energy towards it, but the person must pick one side or the other, positive or negative. Okay, basically, I don't know how to describe the difference, but it's love. Okay, there's love within, and you love. It's a love for all. That's called unconditional love. It's a love that's just coming out, and it's like, oh, here it is, and it's just there. And then what you look at and what you see, that love is felt. That same vibration is felt, and you're not cutting it off, stemming it. That's the lower brain cutting it off. The consciousness, ego classification, saying, differentiating, distinguishing where it can and can't be. Okay, the higher part doesn't do that. It just is. It enables that knowledge, that awareness of unity. And so, if those are attained, then the person goes to heaven. Weird stuff. It's part of what we saw. And yes, a lot of people will end up turning into these monster things because they like just going around and not caring and knocking stuff over, cutting down all the trees, which is a living organism of the whole environment here, and destroying everything. They like destruction. They like destroying the organic. It's an anti-life, an anti-human vibration they carry. And so then that maximized, magnified, enhanced multidimensionally through a spiritual fire, okay, it turns into another being. It's not an angelic human. It's a subhuman, degraded being. So the demon things, monster things, excuse me. So that was a little bit from Yellow Rose of Texas, and a little bit of talking about the consciousness. Basically, if your consciousness is rooted in this dimension, okay, what happens when it expands beyond the specific historic point and down to the individual moment you're in? What happens if you pop off that track and go somewhere else? You technically, if that information doesn't exist to the originating perspective of your consciousness, then the two can't ever happen in the universe. You can't ever know the you that knows the stuff you can't know. That's the whole point, because you become not you at that point. And they found workarounds for this, but the point is, they did a lot of stuff with these workarounds and knew a lot of stuff, and they changed the whole timeline up. So now if everyone knows what happened in the world, everyone isn't themselves, okay? That has to do with the Bugetchi Mountains, what they found there, what's going on. if I do post this, which I almost don't want to because it's just gone too friggin' off the rails here, then I'll post a link. I mainly wanted to thank everybody for the feeling, basically, that they've given me, and to remind everyone that we gotta to say you're getting disturbed from somebody online, the insults, shocking stuff, even the other emotional spectrum of just like, oh, it's just beautiful, good stuff, which is, there's a good reason to have stuff like that, but when it's just like based on silly stuff, okay, it's gonna equally enable somebody to be shocked by silly, shocking things. And so basically, don't do anything you wouldn't want happening to you. I know everyone's heard this before and everyone knows that, but always think, and as part of reminding yourself, both how am I being expressed into my environment, how are others experiencing me, how am I perceived by others, as well as checking yourself as, how do I look to myself? What am I doing? Who am I right now? If you can do that every day and remind yourself, you whittle down, narrow down the times of unawareness, of making mistakes, of spiritual lawlessness, okay? If you can get to the point where you can go a whole day doing that, you're probably going to see something happen, okay? Which could be shocking, because then somebody from the dark could come and challenge a person, okay? As well, somebody from the light could be like, finally, you woke up. That's what we were waiting on, literally for like thousands of years. It's very, very in-depth, all these situations. That's a good view. I like that. I like trees. Excuse me. I'm in a weird mood today. That's just how it goes. Sometimes it happens. I've been making music. I just got a music device fixed. Hopefully I don't turn into a music machine, a beat drum pad. But I probably spent thousands of, I mean not thousands, but close to 1,000 or more hours on a drum machine and turntables. So screw the pain part. Nobody cares. But that reflection, the ability to reflect onto yourself what you're experiencing as part of that self-initiated feedback loop system, that is what enables you to remain present, to know yourself, and to not get swept off in time. That's literally what happens when these devices turn on, when everything speeds up, because thoughts, emotions, experiences, they warp, they grow, they distort, they extend out in time into these filaments of four-dimensional, hyperactive, like fireworks shooting off in time, okay? And it's your brain becoming a hyper brain, okay? Because you become externalized as energy, as pure energy, pure light. Does anybody realize that? Your brain is like this, it's like, gotta wake up. Okay, imagine that you made that and that was like a supercomputer, okay? That's bad terminology. It's a super plasma system, and that's also bad terminology if you know about the plasma systems, but regardless, that's what it is. It's a liquid etheric light body system. So you're like this, and it's like so much to process. It's, I get overwhelmed easily. Okay, what happens when it's lightning? When you're literally a bolt of lightning in a circle? Everything happens at the speed of light. So if you can't control that, it just goes off into La La Land. And so that's the part of what's happening. If you can stop, because you're so used to stopping, pausing, looking within and checking yourself, self-reflecting into the environment and what's going on, then when that happens, you'll do the same thing, and you will grow, and then you, and it grows and grows and grows, and you become that, instead of just shooting off and becoming some distorted being. So that's kind of how it works, and that's expansion, contraction, exponential, proportional, congruent, basically congruent, proportional growth. The demons, the other beings, whatever it is, it's because their DNA and their body proportions are incongruent or incongruent and disproportional. So the other beings, the DNA distorts, the consciousness distorts, it can't hold the higher motions. The demons that people see from these electromagnetic lower astral realms, they're always freakishly long-armed or distorted face or whatever features, okay? Large, whatever organ system, okay? Whether it's food desires or sexual desires or like lower, even lower than those. Basically, whatever it is, it's kind of distorted and all out of whack. That's because proportion is the source of the function and essentially the meaning in life. It is based upon proportions. Is the beauty, the function, the form, and the I can't really. I'm at a loss for words to describe that, but basically, you know what I mean. If you throw the proportions off on anything, everything stops working. So these other beings, they're not like just fooling around that, this is what I am, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Their proportions got thrown off. That's how it works. And so that's what it means, though. It's all these distorted, just look at throughout history, all these distorted images of these like demonic visions and stuff like that. So basically, I'm going to run through this, and maybe it's better that way. In the Bugatti Mountain, they would use children to try and get through this field, this blast field. Because there's one thing when you got clones, and I'm used to that. I'm used to seeing people in clone bodies die and get switched over, and it's like, there you are. No, it was just your suit. But then I go back and think about the times where people didn't have that. Okay, that's kind of messed up. And then they clone them and recreate their memories, but I still don't know if that's the actual thing. I'm pretty sure they don't truly know either, that you have to transfer the soul through. Otherwise, it's just a clever replication, which was called a replicant. So in that tunnel system, it acted like a time tunnel. I mentioned this before. You go down, you start walking down, and by the time you get to the center, so much time has passed that if you were to go out to the surface, you'd be in another civilization. And technically not by the time you got to the center, that's if you stayed there for a few days to a week or something. But by the time you got out, it would be like a couple weeks to months later. And so if you stayed a month down there, you'd be in another civilization's time period when you came back out. And all the civilizations, that time barrier, they all respect it because they know that that's a nexus point. And Antarctica is the same way. And certain underground vortex areas are like that. And so the idea is they used us to go down there, and so people can only operate either in clone bodies down there, and your consciousness goes into a supercomputer, and it gets doled back out in time right before you left, or right after you left. Otherwise, you'll come out 200 years in the future. And nobody wants that. But then there was a breakaway crew that goes down there, and they live down there, and they've been down there ever since. And so we have to get into a position in history, in time, where the public knows about this, and we are capable of opening up, basically, like Bashago says, Andrew D. Bashago, vortal tunnels, basically portals in time, so that they have a way back. And as well, they don't really want to come back because they see that this is like this is the low society right now of civilizations, and but we have to merge back with a area of time that is synchronized with that, so that basically we can reconnect the civilizations. The other civilization is basically us. That's the paradox. That's what came out here to talk about, and I know it's a big secret from the religious fraternities to the secret societies to the governmental fraternities, which is basically what the government is. That it's part of their secret, and as well, that's the paradox of time. It's in a time bubble. Zero department, which I called Zero Team. Part of my method of remembering them. We're Zero Department. Oh, you're Zero Team? No, we're Zero Department. Is something wrong with you? And I'll remember this interchange, this exchange now. All right. And they knew what I was doing, but I have like these stupid methods of doing it. Why don't you just use the serum or whatever it is? It's like, no, I don't want to. I've had enough, thank you. So it's all related to technology of the chair, what's been coming out in soft disclosure, how it's leading to public disclosure, how the CERN device, they developed this is also from the Lost Emily Moyer and Randy Moggin's talk. The CERN device developed a way of looking into what they could call the underworld. And the underworld is populated by entities. These are basically like standalone plasmic computer systems. They're in an underworld. It's a energy realm. And so in this system, it's just a coalescence of what we would call like a live updating AI system, computer network that grows nodes over time based upon the majority of information, like a mimetic system. And so what's down there is a bunch of AI organisms that literally just feed on information. And so they opened up a portal to that world. And the two, if the two were to collide fully and the portal was to fully open, then it would be it would basically be the singularity, because it would be the synonymous with releasing something that each time, as it interacts with each individual, to the point where eventually our entire timeline would get merged with that one, and that one doesn't. It is not time. It's below the abyss, technically, literally, like technically on the chart, it's the underworld, and so that would be the end of humanity. So they developed a system called Alice. Alice would watch the timeline and watch each individual, because our minds that know this are in this supercomputer system. We're being broadcasted through this system. Okay, so it's watching. Alice is watching all of our minds, like Alice in Wonderland. They described it that it's like the paperclip helper in Word. Okay, the Word document, like, hey, I see you're writing something. So that's there. That's there because before they developed Alice, they have basically these background daemons. These are time lords that are artificial. They're not people time lords. They're not the actual time lords. These are the background processing units of the universe. Not really a time lord, but these are the hounds, the watchdogs of the time lords. Okay, so part of their reasoning for how this is going to work. Okay, they sprayed that information on everyone. So now the watchdogs have to take the whole timeline out if they're going to go through with that. If the watchdogs that don't have the decisions or the ability not to are going to end up coming here. So now we're all screwed. But that's part of the, it's just, they're crazy in a way. Excuse me. They're crazy, but there's a plan behind it. It's like, well, guess what? They can't do to the whole timeline. So they're just going to nullify them. But these beings would appear for these operations, and they would basically battle the people. So they developed Alice. Alice is an automated system that basically functions like a background processing system, basically like a daemon, a demon, only it is geared towards protecting people. All it is geared towards is protecting the timeline from the influence of these background processing units that when there's enough paradoxes or basically decoherences in that timeline, in a specific unit, okay, they black everyone's memories out, they delete that bubble of time from time, they stitch it back together, they put everyone's memories in their they put their bodies there, they put their memories there, and then they go time goes from there. There are explanations that there are entire events in history that are in the history books that are those situations, that these entities came in, deleted everybody, rebuilt the situation from the ground up as props, as like a quantum replication, and that's part of our history. And so they're replicating everything. It's because we started to figure out that history isn't what we think it is. And it all centers around the operations with the chair, where we moved. I have to have a list for this stuff, sorry. And so the chair, it's all related to Sophia and the demiurge, okay? The chair, okay, Montauk chair, that caused ripples in time because it put our consciousness in and out. These non-corporeal entities, okay? These user systems that literally function like the user domains of like a server or a Windows computer or server system, and they have basically different rules and functions. That's like how these entities work with different reality functions, and they're the ones from the underworld they have no parameters for people. It would just be like a free-for-all. So they're trying to very quickly build this realm to have parameters to function with these other beings, not because they're welcoming these other beings on that explanation, but because these other beings are going to invade. And that's just like a way of looking at it. It's kind of like you popped a tire, okay? The air is invading the atmosphere now from your tire. Well, not really. It's just a physics reaction. It's a physical reaction. But this is chemical, physical, biological, temporal, quantum, alchemical, spiritual, mental, causal, temporal. I think I said that. So it's like a lot of stuff destabilizing. It's because of these experimentations. They destabilize time. And time is related to consciousness, and so that's why consciousness is going in and out and being distorted and manipulated, and that's why they're manipulating it. They're smoothing it out with a layer of mind control so that it doesn't rip apart at the seams. Crazy explanations, but bear with me. That's part of the overall explanations that we have, as well as people are just like, F it, we can do whatever we want. Everybody can die anyway. Yeah, that's not cool. Because some of us are going to survive, and if we died anyway, then why would you do that anyway? That's just a measure of yourself. And so the beings run off belief. If enough people can believe them, then they actually grow in power. Okay, so I'm just going to short circuit that section here. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters, okay? That's these beings. They run off of belief. They put everything in movies. Who do you think Vigo was? They needed a baby, come on. Came out of the painting. What do you think that slime stuff is that causes everybody to be possessed? Alright, come on now. At least it wasn't like the Power Rangers brain drain goop that was in that immediately, rotted the brain out. Same stuff. It's apparently alien technology that's designed to wipe out species and infiltrate them. All it does is replace the DNA with the seed species, okay, that comes and grows into these higher dimensional organisms. They're coming back in time to replace the DNA so that people grow into them. So it's like they don't even exist until people get infected by the beings that don't exist until they get infected by the beings. It's a paradox. They're paradox beings. That's the only way they exist, because that's how they opened up a portal, basically, because people did it at first. Looking for, let's go look over there. What can we weaponize from that? Trying to beat one country out of the other. Okay, that's not gonna. Yeah, we're all gonna come together. Everything is balanced. We tried to do this, we tried to do that, and ended up opening these problems up. In undoing these problems, we undo the fact that we tried to start a war between one country and the next, that we were so shut off that we were afraid, and we built up all these weapons. In doing that, we have to merge the relationships between one country and the next. We have to take the weapons and turn them into healing devices between one person and the next. We have to take our secrecy and expose them to the public, so now one person to the next and nation to the next knows that. Okay, and that undoes all those problems. Until those problems are gone, the secrecy, the warlike attitude, all that, those are the seeds for these invasions. That's the invasion. It's a program. It's a global hive mind program. It's a parasitic program. That's the invasion. It was literally digital, or more so holographic information in the network. In the network of both the morphogenic field, which is our DNA, transient, moving around, not in one space at a time, but literally just kind of everywhere. It's ephemeral. I can't think of, there's like technical words for all these ideas, and I can't think today. But that's the invasion. When people act differently, when all this stuff went down, okay, that was the invasion. The visible invasion is just when the sky is electrified, which sometimes happens apparently in history, both through the sun, or sometimes we figured out, well, it's either the sun, or it's when we do it in the future, because that's how we actually plan to finish this. So history's a loop. Nature does it, we do it, then nature does it because we did it, then we do it because nature does it, then nature does it to us, then we do it to nature. It's all in the circle. And then technology makes it possible. And so they need belief in soul beings to work. They can't travel the realms outside of their home domain without using a host soul as a function for that. And so they're non-corporeal entities, and they connect through the vortexes. Okay, and so then the wormholes that they opened up, which are threatening to expand into singularities, that they've been enveloping and like using concentrated magnetic fields to squeeze down since they were opened up. And it's all right in front of our faces, but they bend space and time, and they wipe people's memories so that they don't know it. But it's all public. It's a big, if we had goggles that could see all through the mind control, there'd probably be a big vortex over there with crafts beaming energy at it, trying to stop it from eating the whole world. That's kind of how it works. That's going on right now. It's kind of more interesting than what's going on anyway. So it all centers on public disclosure. And the idea is that, so the time tunnels in the bubble. So it's the time tunnels that they invented, and that's the hallway is kind of like a time tunnel, meaning it goes down and you end up in a different period. But it's within the breeze of warm air. It's within a time bubble. That whole area is. The whole area is within a time bubble. And basically, yeah, there's a crew down there still working, and when they come out, it'll be 200,000 years in the future or something crazy like that. But they can create those time bubbles anywhere, and all the factions are using them because the dark, everything centers around the dark. Whatever the dark uses, whatever they do, whatever they've done, whatever they've changed, everyone does that. Why? Because now we have to be able to match power with power. What are we going to do? Sit back and let them go haywire? Now we have to get the same power, same technology, the same location, the same force, the same rhythm, and then bounce it back to try and put a resistance. Otherwise, they'll just wipe everything out. So there's interplay, this balancing force, balancing. It's literally, Earth is a balancing act. Either side goes off, everything turns into light, one way or the other. And this realm becomes the underworld or a heavenly realm. And so the Bigitsi Mountains, look at the video. They found holographic libraries. That's part of where the computers, they found remnants of these civilizations, remnants of these technologies and this technology all over the world, all throughout history. You know, World War II, literally World War II was when Hitler was like, all right, let's go find the rest of it. Let's go find the technology. Let's go find this. Let's go do that. Let's open up our DNA. It wasn't, none of the wars are just like, yeah, we're doing this. It's literally about these things. And as well, it's to gain the power to do it before people do it, or before people get changed. Basically, if the information is released, it changes the world. The idea is that the Bigitsi Mountains contain aspects of our history, bone structures and samples of beings, these giant beings. I don't even want to go into that part because it's kind of too weird. But basically very, very powerful beings with very, very powerful technology. And they said, everything that it's so hard to explain. But the idea is, and I have a feeling I'm not going to upload this, but I kind of have to. So that's part of the reason why they feel like this. It's part of the reason why they inform people. They're going to inform people that this is like a holographic universe as well. They have done it. It's like you have the game. What is it? Wow, not Roblox. That's the new ones the kids are playing. Minecraft. And you can build stuff and you code it in, and it pops up. Okay, they've been doing that forever. Okay, they can replicate stuff. They can technically forever. As soon as they opened up that time portal, it expanded time. But they found devices that apparently cause the changes in history. These are the generator devices that I mentioned that control this population, that control time, that control history. They found that we are basically running on a very complex, scalar emitted, 3 to 5 dimensionally expanded, operating, functioned virtual reality server system that centers around technology that's based around Earth. That's based in the ground, in the mountains, in these underground bases, and even some in what we call space, but it's really just the extended atmosphere. I'm telling you, that's what these people told me, and that's what I've seen. That if you modify this device, you change the reality, you change everything forever. That's the stuff they can't talk about. So they were at odds with the Romanian government. I met zero department. I met every department, okay? But and I'm not just saying that, obviously. And there are multiple factions within the factions. Not really multiple, but you get the idea. But, you know, knowledge is more powerful than weakness. And a lot of people are picking a weak path here. But Zero Department literally wants humanity to make a choice of how we're going to live in a world with access to such power, knowledge, and technology, or whether we're going to be coerced into silence, submission, subjugation, and ignorance through fear, depravity, and secrecy, and false authority, which is what that is. How are we going to live in such an environment? Who are we going to live for? Are we going to live for ourselves? Or are we going to live for each other? Or are we going to live for both, all three, including the universe and the creation at large in terms of being able to handle the truth and maintain ourselves, maintain our position, maintain our consciousness within the light of this larger truth. That's what every conspiracy is based upon. The fact that if you told people this, the entire world immediately would burst into flames. Maybe not burst into flames. Excuse my dramaticism. Immediately, it would turn upside down. Because that's what happens to every person that they expose this to. They immediately, everybody's response is like, I don't know how to explain it. Imagine that. They showed you this reality is a generator. It's from a generator. Or at least there's generators that pulse out the same frequency of this reality like it's a fabric, a substance, a liquid, and it can manifest it and change it like those, the arc or something like that. Okay, well then in that sense, this reality is manipulable. It's simulator ready and apparent, so therefore we're merged in a way as a simulator. This universe is a type of life simulator. So the civilization is a civilization simulator. And so there's civilizations, and they found this before us, and they left us this technology. The idea is that everyone got there around the same time, obviously, because they're all sneaking around. I can take this down now. It doesn't make sense to. I'm only going to make the branch stronger. So everyone got there at the same time. The intelligence agencies, the military, the secret societies, the secret black ops groups, the secret groups. Everyone got there at the same time, more or less. And I don't even know how to describe what that means. Because Romania was planning on telling the world. Many groups stopped them. They were stopped because of the implications that are there, what it would mean to the world. The idea, and this is not just because the cabal wants their secrecy. Don't get me wrong. I have met my fair share of big, powerful, kind of nasty guy, with their kind of devious desires and stuff. Powerful, wealthy person. Okay, I've met my fair share. But I'm gonna switch to a audio only here.